dove le mette per il video? Dimmi dov'è. È uguale. Che non dia fastidio.
Come? Ho detto che era
Okay. Okay. Hello, everyone. Hello. 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 Oh, it works. Where would you like me to go? Do you want me to sit down?
Yeah, you can sit down. We're waiting for Jonah. Just
Okay.
30 seconds and then we start.
Sure. Sure.
Oh,
You jumping in here? Is this where
Yeah.
you're sitting here?
Yeah, next to you. So.
Okay. Excellent. All right. Is Jonah coming, or do you want to do
Okay.
more photos here?
Okay. No, I think we can start.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Good morning. How we doing? A little hot. You got your fans with you? That's good. Wow. How many people were in the piazza last night?
Raise your hand.
Oh, raise your hand. Yes. Be polite. Always be polite. Yeah. Great. Cool. What a spectacle. Last night was really magical, wasn't it? It's. So is that how you start every? Is that how it starts every
Every day,
opening? Every time, or every night? There's a.
Every
there's
night there is a film and a star on the stage, our awardees, and yeah, it was pretty cool last night,
Wow!
right?
Wow! No, yeah, it really is.
After 2 years of pandemic,
Yeah.
1 year the festival was sort of cancelled. Last year we had strong limitation with the audience, but last night we had a
Yeah.
fully booked piazza, and come on.
Yeah. Oh, well, thanks for turning up last night. That was amazing. I mean, I'm sure it's pretty good with the COVID protocols, considering it's all outside. So.
Yeah, wasn't bad. So how did you feel when you were on stage and look at that?
Quite honestly, it was quite daunting, actually. You know.
Daunting.
Yeah, it's just scary, you know. But overwhelming, really. It was just to look out over the piazza, and you know, the clock tower was lit up. There was the moon. It was very magical. It was very theatrical, really. You know, it almost encapsulates cinema, I think, the Piazza Grande for that kind of event. So it feels very. It feels unique and authentic to this film festival. It feels great. Yeah.
Cool. Then so let's start with this conversation. And first of all, thank you for accepting the Excellence Award Davide Campari, which every year goes to an actor whose contribution have made a mark on contemporary cinema. And I believe this is very much your case. And I would say for two main reasons. On the one hand, you are undeniably one of the most talented and successful actors of your generation, and I would say also a very young actor too. And I want to point this out because I really like the idea that this award goes to a young artist, of course, as a way to celebrate your career, but also as a sort of safe bet or promise for the future.
A safe bet.
The good things to come. But then on the other hand, we believe that you somehow embody the essence of the contemporary actor as, a brilliant artist who proved able to speak to all audiences, jumping from one genre to another, always with this extraordinary ability of putting yourself to the test and taking risks artistically each time. And because if we look at your filmography, you work on these huge blockbusters. Be it Kick-Ass, the Godzilla reboot, Avengers, Tenet, and of course our opening film from last night, Bullet Train.
Right.
But then you also shined in directors-driven, critically acclaimed works such as Nowhere Boy. You did the Anna Karenina reimagining by Joe Wright, which I personally adore. And of course, you did Nocturnal Animals by Tom Ford, which is screening this afternoon as a tribute to your career. So, there are many things that I would like to discuss in this conversation with you. I was saying you're a young actor, but you also started your career at a very young age. So I would like to know where did your desire to be an actor come from?
Well, firstly, thank you for that introduction. That was really flattering because. It does feel really extraordinary to get an award that feels, very early in my career, but yet, I mean, you keep saying, as I am, a younger actor, yet it has been like, quite a long journey, and it does seem really nice to be able to see the body of work that there has been some achievements along the way, which is nice to see. So to feel like the film festival have gifted me this award, which is, like you said, that sort of looking into the future, which is it's just really really beautiful. So again, I really appreciate this honor. It's really amazing. So for your question, like, how did this start for me? Because I started when I was 6 years old, right? I started acting when I was 6, professionally, not in the West End actually. My first ever thing was An Inspector Calls, which was a play by Stephen Daldry at the time. He was directing, so that was the first thing I ever did, and I was 6 years old. But the question was, where did this sort of acting bug come from, right? Which is interesting. I suppose I've always had this kind of wild imagination. When I was a kid, I had a very vivid, wild imagination, and I was very active as a kid. For the most part, I think my parents just wanted me to get out of the house because I was just too active, So I would always have these different activities with like gymnastics, swimming, martial arts, what have you. And one of the things that I did was this dance school. And at the time, they had this thing called a spotlight agency where you had a black and white photo, and they sort of sent it off to castings and things like that. And that's how I kind of got introduced to it. But, I was just a curious kid. I think I was someone who was just really active. I was definitely one of those kids who, with a lot of friends, would do a lot of like fantasy dress-up plays and things like that. Was always performing and dancing at home. So that was sort of already inbuilt in me. And but the first thing I did was An Inspector Calls, and when the director tells a 6-year-old kid to do something, and I think they're literally just looking for the child who's just going to do the most basic thing and do as they're told. So, and I was always sort of, engaged in that. And it kind of just started from there. And I just didn't really have this, I really enjoyed being on stage with this sort of, live audience. And it never really fazed me. I didn't have any, at that time, it didn't faze me. Last night it was quite scary. No, but I felt comfortable. I felt very comfortable in that world, and then it just sort of sparked off from there. And then I did commercials, and I did TV, and I did a little bit of background work and extra work. And then, my first movie was when I was 10, and that was when it sort of kind of changed for me. Right? It was that moment when I had to, because I was a part of the gymnastics squad, right? I thought I was going to be a gymnast. I was like, I thought that was my path, And it was that moment where I had to make a decision at 10, when it was like, should I go do this movie, which was called Tom and Thomas. It was by this Esme Lammers, who's a Dutch director. And so I had spent 5 months in Amsterdam, where I played twins. I played Tom and I played Thomas. And that was a big feat for me, because when I was going through all the casting process and the auditioning, it was me, and then next to me was a pair of twins, and another pair of twins, another pair of twins. And, so I had to go in, and I'd go in as one character, and then I'd go and leave, and I'd say, I'll go get my brother, and I come back in the room, and I'd done a change and messed up my hair, and then I did a different accent and different body, and and this was really early on. I mean, this was a good 23 years ago when we shot this. So this was they had to literally, it was me performing with a stick with a tennis ball on it as an eye line, right? And then they would split the screen, and then I'd go get change, and then I'd do the same scene again with a tennis ball, and just remembering what my lines were or how I did. So I was performing against myself, It was kind of crazy. And they sort of put that belief and trust in me really early on. But the job was... But the big thing was to make that decision, right? And I remember my mother sort of saying, listen, when are you ever going to have the opportunity to do a movie ever again in your life? Like, You know, like you might be able to just come back and be in the gym squad, because I had to leave the gym squad, right? So it was a big decision for me at 10 years old. It was big. But it was those kind of decisions really early on that kind of probably almost, you know, helped me make decisions later on in life, right? Because I have to follow my instinct and my gut feeling and my intuition, right? And every time later on in life when I've made decisions against my intuition, you know, I've had a bad time and made and made bad choices and made mistakes. And so it really starts to hone in and filter where you want to sort of go. But I remember my mother just sort of saying, like, you know, you might never make a movie again, and like this might be like your only opportunity. And you know, and that's how I felt when I was a kid. I was like, wow, like this might be it. This might be my last one. You know, this is a great opportunity. So I did that, and then, you know, and then the door opened to other things and other opportunities, and it's like, wow, this next movie might be the last movie I ever do. I might have to do it, and then, you know, this TV thing, you know. But by then, I was in school, and I didn't spend much time in school because I ended up working. I ended up doing a lot of projects, TV and films and things like that, and I ended up sort of living this dual life in a way, you know. I had this sort of adult acting sort of, you know, career going on, and then I'd have a school life with my friends, and, you know, I wouldn't mix the two at all, you know. You didn't really talk about those things at school, and that's how I kind of kept it separate. And then when I was about 15, I left school and I went on the road and tried to continue what I was doing. So.
Well, but that decision, you know, paid off in the end, and you kept on acting throughout your teenage years. So you played the young Charlie Chaplin in Shanghai Nights alongside Jackie Chan and Owen Wilson. Then you also played the young Edward Norton in The Illusionist. So quite a lot of exciting projects for a teenager, really. But then your breakout role was in 2009 when you played John Lennon in Nowhere Boy by Sam Taylor Johnson. For that role, you won the Empire Award for Best Newcomer, and you were also nominated as the Young British Performer of the Year by the London Film Circle. So something very prestigious. But you know, that was really demanding role. I mean, you were playing John Lennon. That comes with a lot of responsibility towards the fan base, and I would say basically everybody in the world. So did you feel any pressure? How did you prepare for the role? And also, in retrospective, what that role meant for you and for your career?
Yeah, I mean, it was quite a huge feat to kind of step in the shoes of John Lennon. You know, it was. I think, you know, in retrospect, I think it really informed quite a lot of how I kind of try and approach most of my characters now, because, you know, up until then, you know, I'd been sort of, you know, they were just fictional characters. So this demanded, Nowhere Boy really demanded real attention and preparation, and I had to study, you know, I had to really understand who John Lennon was. In fact, obviously the movie is actually a coming-of-age story. It's actually a story before he became John Lennon, almost. So it's actually, you know, a couple of chapters in some of his books, you know, and stories of his mother and Aunt Mimi and things like that. So you're sort of almost piecing together this puzzle that, you know, there wasn't really, that was the only sort of part of his life that wasn't documented, you know. From there, I think we end in, and they go off to Hamburg, you know, him and Paul and the boys, George. And from then on, like, their life was documented, you know. So I had to kind of draw upon all these, you know, I had to do my research. I had to read a lot on Lennon, and I watched a lot of documentaries. You're putting together quite a lot of things, right? You're trying to capture his voice, mannerisms. I got to learn, you know, play guitar, things like that. And, you know, and in order to sort of create this character, there's two ways of doing, when you're playing real people, there's two ways of doing it. There's impersonation, right? and then there's embodying the spirit of the character. And Sam, at the time, the director Sam, now Taylor Johnson, because I married her, was she wanted to really understand the essence and the spirit of that character, rather than doing this impersonation. And the way we sort of discovered that was by Daniel Day-Lewis once said, right, in order to discover his characters, you have to kind of sniff around. Yeah, you got to find a scent, right? You got to sniff around the character, right, when you're doing real characters. And it was really interesting to me what that meant. Like, young John Lennon obviously wasn't singing Beatles songs, right? You know, who was his influences? Who were his people, right? Like Buddy Holly, Elvis Presley, you know, who are the people that he was listening to? So you start to try and live in those shoes, right? And start to listen to the things that maybe he would listen to as a child, you know, the funny sitcoms, the drawings that he did, the humor that he had. So it was things like that that really opened up a new door into a character. And I think once you do that sort of preparation, you can then, on the day, you tend to throw it away, right? And allow for your intuition and instinct to sort of take over, and so you can be present in the scene with the other actors, right? So in hindsight, what I mean is, in hindsight, by doing that kind of intensive research at 19, was the first time I had, because I never went to drama school. I didn't go to drama school. I hadn't been professionally, I hadn't been taught all these different techniques and things. My learning has been on the go. It's been on the move and opposite great actors and working with great filmmakers, and that's been my teaching. That's been my study, right? So this was a big moment where I had understood that from here on, I'm going to sort of, now, when I work with fictional characters, I'm going to go deeper into those fictional characters and figure out what is their scent, what can they, you know, what are their hobbies, what are their habits, what are their bad habits, what are their intentions, all those sort of things. So that it did really harness something new in me for that.
And then 2016 was another key year, a milestone in your career, because it's the year of Nocturnal Animals by Tom Ford. The film played in Venice competition, won a big award, was a huge success. And in that film, you played the role of Ray, this very unsettling, menacing, dark, Texan
horrendous
guy.
person, yeah.
But for that role, you won a Golden Globe for Best Supporting Actor and also earned a BAFTA nomination. I would love to know how you first met Tom Ford. How did you land that role? Why do you think Tom Ford wanted you specifically for that role, and why you wanted that role?
Honestly, I couldn't tell you why Tom Ford thought I was going to be right to play this psychopathic rapist. I did know Tom a little bit briefly before making this movie. And I've had a few dinner evenings with Tom and his late husband Richard. You know, he knows me. He knows me. I've got 4 daughters. I'm a father. I like, this is not this character. I have no idea why he decided this would be the perfect thing for me. Apparently, the story goes that he had, on one of these dinners that we had, I had obviously told a story of some kind where he felt like I could play this character. I don't know what I did. I don't know what the story was about, but I obviously got really heated and was saying some relentless stuff, clearly. Probably a bit more like Tangerine. I was probably a bit more like Tangerine that night. He asked me to play this role. I honestly didn't think I could do do that part. It scared me, actually, because I didn't have an in. But I knew that he was a filmmaker that I wanted to work with. So, you know, Amy Adams and Jake Gyllenhaal were already attached. Michael Shannon was just about to step on. This was a huge opportunity for me to be around mega talented actors, a great filmmaker, and I couldn't, for the life of me, see how to play this character, and it was daunting. It was scary. It was like I didn't know what he wanted, and he kept on saying. So I remember asking him and saying, like, what can I do? And then he's just like, he just wanted this guy to be unpredictable, intimidating, but charismatic, right? And so I had just, and that was almost too vague for me as well. Like, I still didn't know the angle to come in. So it scared me into over prepping. So this comes back to that kind of nowhere boy thing of just going, listen, I got to turn up to set extremely prepared because I'm opposite Jake Gyllenhaal. You know, Amy Adams is in this movie, and Tom Ford is going to direct me. I need to know exactly every ins and outs of this character. So I went on a binge of a couple of months of studying serial killers and psychopaths, and it got really, really dark. And I became a bit of a nocturnal animal, really. I had to kind of shut my kids, or I had to stay away. I think my family kind of shut me away. And then I had sort of, you know, when we were making the movie, I went to go stay in a motel out in the desert. And I was on a bit of a toxic diet of just, you know, cigarettes and booze, I think, because I wanted to feel kind of filthy and dirty on the inside. And I kind of just stayed up through the night and I just studied Jeffrey Dahmer, Ted Bundy, you know, The Jinx on HBO was out at the time. And I just absorbed these kind of really sinister, dark characters. And the one thing I noticed was that all of them were charismatic, right? All of them had a charm or a swagger or something about them that was appealing, and this sort of confidence, right, which was just unsettling. And the other thing was they had this look in their eye, they had this weird stare where they had a lack of empathy. Like, all of them were sociopaths. They didn't have any empathy, so they had this just nasty side which they just didn't care, you know, about their victims or what have you. And it was just, that disturbing thing was the thing that then I wanted to bring to Ray Marcus, that character. And I think there's a moment with Jake Gyllenhaal where he just keeps looking at me, he's screaming and shouting at me, and there's this kind of glazed over look of just lack of empathy. And it was stuff like that. I wanted to turn up to work and show Tom that I'd done my research, and I realized that I was a supporting actor, right? And I think about that. I think, what does a supporting actor really need to do, right? He needs to support the lead, and the lead was Jake Gyllenhaal, and Jake was playing a character that was really difficult. He'd just come off Southpaw, where he played a boxer, and he was like, I could batter the shit out of anybody here, you know, like, you know, so he's got that already, but he had to play a character that was, you know, that was intimidated and kind of, you know, emasculated, right? That's difficult for a male leading actor to play that. So, you know, it was my job to keep it fresh and new every take. And so the big scene, the 13-minute scene that we have where we pull him over on the side of the road, we'd shot that over a day or 2 days, and we'd done umpty nine different takes. And a lot of that started to become ad-libbed improvisations where I would just, each take, I would do something new in order to get a fresh reaction and response from Jake Gyllenhaal, in order to also give him something to do, you know. So I grew a lot on that because I understood what it was to really be that supporting role, you know, that supporting actor. You know.
And then jumping from one kind of film to another, tell me, how was the experience on Bullet Train that we saw last night? Because, I have this idea, watching the film and also watching some pictures of you and the rest of the cast touring Europe for the film, that you had a great fun. Maybe just my impression.
Yeah, that's sort of, you set me up for a joke there, but like, nah, we don't like each other. I mean, I think the photos are just Brad jumping on us and like over us. He's a dude, man. Like what you see is just kind of, he's that. He's nothing more than just like very humble. He's so much humility and a gracious human being. And he was just up for making a laugh. He's in a new chapter in his life, I think, where he's just like, I just want to bring light and joy into my world and be around the people that, who are there to have a good time, Because you get to this point where, you work with many actors and many people, and you start to make notes about, I'll work with that person again, but I'm definitely not working with this person again, like, oh, that person was a nightmare. And then, and then that sort of stuff goes out there in the industry, and you're like, oh my God, you're going to work with that person? Don't. Life's too short. That's like the thing. So, I think at Brad's point, he's got that list, and he's got the good list and the shit list, and so, it trickles down from the top, honestly. When you get a professional, legendary actor like Brad Pitt, and he's on set, and he's just, and he's turned up on time, and he knows his lines, and he's just willing to have a good time. It puts you at ease, and I think he was also really supportive of the rest of the cast, really, that we all shined in our moments. That we're all there to do the best that we can do, and he was really encouraging. But yeah, we all got along. Listen, we shot this movie. Some of you saw it last night. We shot this movie right in the thick of a pandemic. I mean, it was like peak bleak, There was a big dark cloud looming over us, and we went to work every day and decided to make joy and light, This was before vaccines. We had to be tested twice a day. We had masks and visors. Everyone around us did. We had to keep 6 feet distance. We were like one of the few movies that got green lit, and they shot it on a studio. Sony had, I guess they usually make a lot of big TV things. It's very rare for Hollywood to be making a movie in Hollywood these days. You'd be surprised. But they built these carts. They built like 4 different train carts. One was, the economy, first class, the bar, and then he's had these great big 20-foot LED screens where it projected the landscape of Japan, right? So David Leitch Sony had sent out like some, guerrilla crew to film from the bullet train, from Kyoto to Tokyo, this landscape from both sides, and then they projected it on the screen. So we created this environment because, there was also travel restrictions. When we took this job, I was like, great, we're going to Japan. We're going to make this thing in Japan. It's going to be amazing. I've never been in Japan. It's going to be great. No. I'm like, no, we're shooting in a studio. Okay. All right, fair enough. But it was amazing, They created this environment where you really felt you was like on the train, and I don't think they could have done it any other way anyway. The way we shot this thing with all the stunts and the action and what have you, and locking it down and all that. So, but in between takes, you'd sit in your chair and you'd look out the window, just sort of in a daze, looking at the landscape of Japan, and you're like, oh shit, it's not actually real. But for a minute there, I got taken away, and then. It was just one of those. We just make each other laugh, This character, like Tangerine, when I first read it, it made me laugh out loud, and I just saw it as an absolute bombastic character, like a larger than life character, right? But I didn't really know the extent of who this character was until Brian Tyree Henry, who plays Lennon, he steps into those shoes, because these were like, they were the duo, they were the twins, right? One's black, one's white. So there was all this sort of kind of like jokes and tropes and things like that we were just like, yeah, it's not going to carry it, you know. That doesn't feel authentic enough. So Brian and I really wanted to create this this real true backstory for these two, right? That they were really, you know, in and out of foster homes together, and they grew up together as brothers. You know, that's all they had was one another. So there's love and empathy there, and a bond. You know, they are yin and yang. So we wanted to create these characters. So when he stepped on, I was already a huge admirer of his work. I mean, he's such a talented, versatile actor, Brian Tyree Henry. But we just clicked. The moment we met each other, there was this friendship and this bond, and we felt like brothers straight away. So we had this kind of great trust. So when we were opposite one another, we kind of tossed the script away and just ad-libbed and improvised. And I think, you know, the big thing was David Leitch kind of saw that there was something kind of special happening, and he stepped back, and he gave us the space to keep exploring and discovering our characters whilst we were filming it and experimenting. And yeah, we just kept on pushing it. And it really kind of then evolved into a lot of comedy, you know, which I don't know if it was going to start that way, you know, but it definitely ended that way because we just wanted to make light and joy of this time.
Great. I'm afraid that time for us is up now, so I really take this opportunity to thank you very much for your generosity, time, and we looking forward to seeing you again in Locarno soon.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me again, and thanks everyone for patiently waiting and hearing me today. So thanks for coming. Appreciate it. Thanks, Would you like me to sign that? Yeah. It's an alright. No, but there's a humour to it. It's like heightened reality, and I think there's just